Now, for more on this story, we can bring in our international affairs commentator, Douglas Herbert. Doug, talk us through who Khalifa Haftar is and why is he throwing into his hat into the ring just days after Moamer Kadhafi's son said exactly the same thing?
Well, who he is. He's basically a military commander. He's going to have to relinquish his military posts in order to run for president. There's a new electoral law that was passed that allows him now to run for president so long as he relinquishes his military roles. If he loses the election, he could always resume his military post. This is a man, in short, who is wanted for war crimes by the International Criminal Court. He is actually, he's been accused. He's not wanted by the ICC. He's been accused of war crimes. He has launched a number of offensives over the years in 2018 and 2019 on various parts of Libya in sort of an effort to, use his military forces loyal to him to basically assume control of the country. He believes he sees himself sort of uniquely in a sense as a savior. He sees himself as a beacon for the Libyan people, trying to bring order to a country that has been in the throes of chaos since the uprising in 2011 that overthrew Moamer Kadhafi in the bloody revolution there. The reason immediately that you could say he's running, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to speculate. He led a military offensive from his base in the east of Libya towards Tripoli in the west, which is the seat of the UN-recognized government and has been for the past several months there. He started that in 2019. It was a 14-month campaign which came to a disastrous defeat in June 2020. A disastrous defeat, and basically a ceasefire ended up being signed. He had to retreat, and this is a way, basically, of doing by political means what he was unable to do by military means. He is trying to now put his chips in the political box as opposed to the military box, hoping he will win. But like I said, even if he were to run and lose the presidential election, he could still go back to being a general and still have his ambitions, try to pursue his ambitions further.
In other ways. Now, this election next month comes at a pivotal time for the country, doesn't it?
Yeah, it really does. Look, 2 days ago, we were talking about another very controversial and potentially divisive candidate, one of the sons of Moamer Kadhafi, the overthrown and killed former dictator. Saif al-Islam Gaddafi threw his hat into the ring last Sunday. And basically, he has, yes, a lot of Libyans behind him because there's this sort of, paradoxically, you might say, a nostalgia for what some people see as the good old days under Moamer Kadhafi, because Libya, as I said, has been in such chaos, squabbling factions and tribal rivalries everywhere, and violence and human trafficking, and the list of the civil war goes on and on and on. They almost see him as perhaps someone who could foster something more resembling his father's type of rule, if not exactly that template, a kinder, gentler version, perhaps, of Moamer Kadhafi's rule. That's paradoxical, but like I said, there has been a transitional government in place since March of this year. It is sponsored by the United Nations, a United Nations peace process. The reason, the raison d'etre, if you will, of this transitional government based in Tripoli, UN-sponsored, what is it? It is to see through the transition to elections, presidential, parliamentary, to be held in December, the presidential election December 24th. So these candidates, both Saif Gaddafi and Haftar, basically throw a real spanner in the works of those UN plans and that transitional government's ambitions to see this election through to a peaceful, being able to hold it peacefully in December.
How do you imagine that this is all going to play out, these elections, if you could look into your crystal ball?
Unfortunately, no, there are no crystal balls, but yeah, and you don't really need a crystal ball. We've already seen the precedent in Libya. It's already racked with so many rivalries and so many, like I said, squabbling factions and tribal rivalries everywhere you look. The two candidates that we've just been talking about, it's almost like they are calculated to perpetuate these rivalries. They are not, despite what Haftar has said, that he sees himself as being uniquely qualified to try to bring stability to the Libyan people. He says he's not chasing after power here. He is chasing after the welfare and the well-being of Libya. He may say that, but the reality is a lot of the opponents of both of these men on either side are basically perhaps going to call for boycotts of these elections. They see any election in which these two candidates would be involved as an extremely destabilizing, potentially dangerous influence on what Libyans are hoping to be an election that could, like I said, bring a semblance of, if not normalcy, at least greater stability to the country. So nothing really good ahead. Both of them are playing on the divisions, both within Libya and with among foreign powers outside. Let's not forget that it's become a proxy battle as well for foreign powers that are bitterly divided, each supporting either one of these candidates. So watch this space, but it's hard to be very optimistic with this back-to-back announcement of very controversial candidacies by very controversial men.
Douglas, thank you very much for that. Douglas Herbert there.